Today is the second day of Av, the 6th of August. We're in chapter 13 of Shorosh Mitzvah Tefillah in Derech Mitzvah Secha. And we ended last time with the explanation that the Sovev is coming down into the Mamala, the infinite light, as it's called, relative to the Mamala, is called the surrounding light. And it's because that's what seems to have been left after the contraction, the first contraction, like it was surrounded everything. And that's what we bring down every day. And we said that it first comes down into wisdom, and then it goes into Bina, into understanding. Okay. So, and we explained some things about the infrastructure versus what we're transferring on the infrastructure every day. Okay. ולכן בקריאת שמע, שאז הוא המשכת הערה חדשה מאור אינסוף, הוא נקרא ייחוד אבא ואמא. דהיינו שהאבא הוא בחינת חוכמה עילה, המקבל בראשונה הערה זו מאור אינסוף, ומאיר ומשפיע אחר כך בבינה. So the reason, he goes back, he already explained this to us, but he's saying, again, the reason that we call the Kriyas Shema, the unification, the yichud of Abba and Ima, of the mother and father, which is wisdom and understanding, is because, first of all, the light of the infinite light goes into the father, then it's transferred, it's giving it to the mother, to the Bina, and that's how it works. So it's called the unification of father and mother. Well, he said this already. So what's he adding now? Now he's adding, ואומנם זהו לגבי הארת האור אינסוף המתלבשת באצילות. ובוודאי יש כמה וכמה עולמות לפני האצילות, והארה זו נמשכת תחילה בתוכן. So he says, for all of this to work, there must be many worlds before Atzilus. This is all in the world of Atzilus. Everything the Arizal describes, everything in the Zohar basically, is all in what we call the world of emanation. It's not a general thing. You're not saying this is all there is. No, this is very specific in the same way that the Zohar understands that the entire Torah is talking in the world of creation. Why is it talking in the world of creation? Because it starts Bereshit bara Elokim tashamayim va'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So we're talking about creation. And the Zohar takes it one notch higher. It says now we're going to talk about emanation, about Atzilus. But there's Ak before that, and there's before the contraction. There's many, many levels before that. So it says the Tzemach Tzedek. Thus, what we have is that this is the end of a long process. The light coming into Chochmah, the Chochmah of Atzilus, the wisdom of the world of emanation, and from there going to the Bina of Atzilus. That's after many, many levels that happened. Again, the whole reason that we did this in chapter 12 was because we wanted to explain that the Chlifu Duchtayu, that the training places, is because they're nullified to something much higher than both of them. If they weren't nullified to something much higher, these higher iterations of the light of the infinite coming down, they wouldn't be able to later trade places. עד שאחר כך מגיע באבא ואמא דאצילות, ומשם ומה שנתבאר זה ייחוד אבא ואמא, היינו בבחינת אצילות, ולמעלה מזה לא רצו לדבר במקום גבוה כזה. So he says, but really, the reason that the Arizal calls this Abba and Ima, father and mother, which is always in the world of emanation. I mean, if you don't categorize, if you don't say, I'm talking about a different place, then you're talking about in the world of emanation. That's the way the Sfirot are, that's the way the Partzufim are, they're all in the world of emanation. And the reason that he doesn't talk about anything beyond that is because he didn't want to talk about a higher place. But there is a higher place. Again, the whole point is we have to have something higher, otherwise the whole trading places thing is not going to work. But that's just not mentioned. The unification.
When you say Yichud, it must be something higher than that.
For the Yichud itself, I don't know if you need something higher. For the trading places, you need.
Trading places, but something is higher than this too. The trading from this too.
So they have something higher, but the question is whether they have to be.
Something higher.
They have, and in practice they do. I don't know. If for a yichud.
You can't say of the highest thing, yichud with something else. It's really changing.
No, here the yichud is just between them. They're on the same level.
Not the same level.
It's like the question. It's like the question like this: Can two people get married if there's no higher authority over them? That's basically what you're saying. So what happens if I'm stuck in a desert island with a woman? I'm not married. She's not married. Can we get married?
Jewish woman, you're stuck in an island. That's a great question. It would seem no.
So we have to have witnesses.
Yeah.
So what do we do? What did Adam and Eve do? They got married. It's a big question.
Wow.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Can you get married without a higher authority? The pshat in halacha is no, you can't.
Yeah.
The simple pshat, if you open up Hilchos Kiddushin and then Ktubos, you can't do it all. But maybe you could do it on a t'nai. You can say that when we do get witnesses, then everything. But the pshat is that I don't think you can. Why? Because marriage is a public affair. It's not between me and you. I say it used to be that way. The Rambam, that's how he starts with Chassidus. He says in the past, all the person needed to do was find a woman, and that's it. He took her home, and he was married. There was no need for the public announcement that we do in a...
Was he saying?
What? Before the Torah.
Yeah.
Before the Torah. That's how people got married.
Yeah.
Okay, can I do that as a Jew? Probably not. In any case, I can probably figure out something, right? But if you're the only two people left in the world. So you're right in a certain sense, that there has to be some higher authority for something to unify. The question is whether it's really necessary or it's some kind of gzera that we do because we don't want the world to be uncivilized, right? In any case, אבל הכלל הוא שבקריאת שמע נמשך הערה מחודשת ממש ממקור הדקולה הוא האור אינסוף הסובב כל מין ממש. But despite this whole thing, what we're saying is, again, we're making this point all through chapter 12, which I mostly skipped, and now, is that we're bringing down from the source itself, from the source of the infinite light. The sovev itself, it's not a relative sovev, it's the sovev itself, the surrounding light itself. וכן כתוב להדיא בליקוטי תורה פרשת וירא. וזה לשונו. And in the Arizal, I think he's talking about the Arizal, because there's two Likutei Torah. There's Likutei Torah from the Alter Rebbe, and there's Likutei Torah from the Arizal. But usually when you say Parshas Vayera on Likutei Torah, then you just say which Parsha, you mean that it's the Arizal. And he writes like this: ואין לך שום זיווג דזון, שאין זיווג אבא ואמא קודם להן, גם אבל לוקחים חיות יותר מלמעלה עד המאציל העליון, כי הוא לבדו יש בו כוח לחדש תמיד. לפי שאין לו סוף, מה שאין כן בנצלים שאין להם אלא לעצמן, מה שניתן להם מלמעלה. לכן דע שאין זיווג למטה בזה, שאין זיווג ההוא נמשך מלמעלה עד אין סוף. Okay, so what's he saying now? He's saying that in Parshas Vayera, they are also in relation to, I believe it's Avram and Yitzchak. The Arizal writes, and here we have to get into one of the basic topics of all of Kabbalah, a really basic topic. The topic really the topic is, can you have anything new in this world? Anything new? Can anything new happen in this world if it doesn't stem from the source itself? That's the question. So, when I come and say that when I do a mitzvah, any mitzvah that I do, this mitzvah is bringing, like we said before, a tosefet, an additional attribute or additional measure of godliness into the world. Can anything like this happen without touching the source itself? The source meaning God himself. Meaning, is there a repository, some big silo of divine energy that we're tapping into? Can that be? He says no, it can't be. You can't tap into a silo. You can't tap into some repository. You have to go to the source. You always have to go to the source. Otherwise, what are we talking about? Otherwise, it's a type of idolatry.
Because we're going into
Because now you're saying somebody else has the energy.
something else.
Yeah, somebody else is responsible for it. Meaning somebody's keeping it. Hashem didn't do that. That's like the main thing. Yeah. So sustaining the world, anything that's sustaining the world, you don't have to go to the source. The sustaining the world, Hashem set it up, it works. And the sun continues to revolve around the earth as far as we see it, and the moon revolves around the earth. It doesn't matter what in reality is really happening. The point is, we see that, and it continues. And the laws of nature are dedicated to their function. They don't change. How is it that they don't change? Because that's how Hashem set it up. They're good servants. They do exactly what Hashem wanted them to do. Now, because they're so consistent, people made a mistake, says the Rambam, and they tried to address them directly. They said, if you're so consistent, maybe I can ask you for something. What he doesn't see is that when something is consistent, that's a sign that it doesn't have any power. That's the truth. The moment that you have something that's consistent, it has no power. This is the main issue that we're facing today with computers, with AI. AI is supposedly not consistent. Why? Because it's so big that if you make even one change in the prompt that you ask it, the output that you'll get is different enough that you'll say, wow, it decided to write something else. It seems like it has free will, but it doesn't have any free will. On the contrary, anything that's consistent is not interesting. It's not. Don't go there. Well, why are you even bothering? It's a machine. Bureaucracy is not something that you try to fight. Famous saying, don't fight City Hall, because you have to go to the mayor. What's the point? You have to get to the source. If the source says, do so and so, then you'll be able to change things. But you can't change things if you don't go to the source. So the same idea is in every mitzvah that we do. If the mitzvah is just doing by rote, I'm just here doing what I was told, I'm a consistent operator. That's all I do. I do exactly what Hashem told me. So it's a big question. Am I acting like the sun and the moon? Or am I still a free-willed person who decides to do so and so? So, in small measure, we have the same issue in ourselves. How are we doing things? Are we doing them like an act of nature, or are we doing them like a human? Which is it? So comes the Zohar and says that the unification of Abba and Ima is the consistent sustaining force in the universe. It's really consistent. It's sustaining. Your father and your mother in your life, the most important thing that they be is consistent. Nobody needs parents. By the way, there's a book my wife got me to read not long ago called The Glass House, or something like that, about a woman who actually became normal, but she grew up in a family that wasn't dysfunctional in the regular way, where the husband is like, the parents divorced, and the parents were just crazy. Just crazy, literally crazy. So they did weird stuff, like off the wall type of bonkers stuff. And like, how do you? I mean, she wasn't not loved; she was loved, but they were so inconsistent. They were so like in her childhood they moved through 50 different homes. Yeah, everything is a new sugya. You have to resolve the whole problem of the whole universe every time you go to cook an egg. Yeah, a person can't live like that. There's no way to live. So father and mother, the parents have to be like the sun and the moon. They have to be dependable. They have to act the same way. I have to know that when I do this, they shout this way. When I do that, they kiss me that way. I have to know. And if it's, by the way, it's also the same thing with school. If you don't...
Where do you find parents like this?
What?
Where do you find parents like this?
My parents were like that.
Perfect.
Always the same. They had no moods even. I didn't understand until much later in life that this was not just the atmosphere that they grew up in. I mean, they took this from their parents, but it was also a challenge for them. Because my mother is moody. But
challenge for her not to be.
But she knew the most important thing I have to show my children
consistency.
is consistency all the time. It was very difficult for them to some extent, but it wasn't as difficult as it is for parents now, because they grew up. They're not Yekas, they're Hungarian. I don't know that, but they were simple farmers. What? No, so love was love. But it's not. Yeah, everything was the same always. I remember it worked in both directions. Meaning, the amount of love they showed, that was the amount of love they always showed.
20 minutes a day of love.
Something like that. So I had to break it. I broke it with them, and it was very interesting to see their reaction, because it wasn't that they didn't know how to love freely. They knew. But they were taught that this is how you should raise children, and I think it was very good. I don't think I lacked for anything for that. And the way I try to raise my children is same way, but with one exception, what you just mentioned, that love is free. That love you can get as much as you want, anytime you want, but
Then it's not consistent.
and it's not consistent, because I want and I keep telling them. Right, and I keep telling them, who loves you the most in the world? The answer is, who loves you the most? Hashem. I love you second. So that they feel that there's even more. That is always consistent.
The kids understand this when he's 67.
Right. Okay, it's an experiment. We'll see how they come out.
You see it. My son writes this week a letter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read it.
I didn't read it yet. I saw it,
all the
but
time was family is number one.
Right.
Not only number one. This is the only thing that
Right,
matters.
it counts.
When you get older, you see only family left.
Right.
And when you get more older, you see the only thing left is your wife.
That's all. Yeah. The smart guy understands it when he's 20. In any case,
Then he can't make it so long.
I don't know. I have many friends who feel the best part of the day is when they finish work, they come home and they spend time with their wife, and they're happy. That's what they need. In any case, so getting back to this, so they say, if you want to have something new in the world, something that's the opposite of consistency, so that comes from the zivug, from the unification of za and nukva, because that unification gives birth to something new. Meaning, Abba ve'ima, father and mother in Kabbalah, are not the fathers, they're not the father and mother of Za and Nukva. They don't give birth to them. They've always been there. What happens is that their consistency makes it possible for Za and Nukva, for the small continents and his feminine counterpart, to give birth to something. That's because really it's like in ourselves. Like the way to really think about it is, my mother and my father is my intellect. My intellect is pretty consistent, meaning once I understood that 2 + 2 = 4, I'm not going to understand that it's 6. It's pretty consistent. And if it's not consistent, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. Mamish, you can't function. It's not that opinions don't change over time, understanding doesn't change, but it's very, very slow. Very slow change. You don't feel it from day to day, not even from year to year. What? Right. Because intellect is very close to the essence of who we are. It's not the essence yet, but it's very close. So it doesn't change very much. But that allows you to then have an emotional world, which is Zayin Nukva, which is more rich, which can change, which can have mood swings, which can have things, but you don't fall apart because of it, because you have some consistency that's holding it together. So says Kabbalah, and this is a big deal, it's called the 2 unifications. The first unification is the first 2 letters of Hashem's name, Yud Kei. That's Abba and Ima. The Vav Kei is Za and Nukva. And it says that Yud Kei is called the Jerusalem above, and the Vav Kei is the Jerusalem below. And says Hashem, I don't enter, this is a statement from the Talmud even, and the Zohar says it more strongly, that I'm not going to enter the lower Jerusalem until I enter the higher Jerusalem. What's he talking about? So there's many, many explanations, but the explanation the Arizal here is giving, he's saying, if I'm going to enter, if the infinite is going to enter the lower Jerusalem, meaning Za and Nukva, it has to pass through Abba and Ima. I don't go into Za and Nukva in a true unification until I do the same thing for Abba and Ima. What does that mean? So he says it doesn't mean that Abba and Ima, that father and mother, are going to change. They're just the conduit for bringing down a new revelation into Za and Nukva. And then Zayin Nukva can give birth to something new. So he says, how does that work in Kriyas Shema? In Kriyas Shema, Abba and Ima are the ones who tap into the infinite. They're the ones through which, like we explained, you have the self-nullification and you have the vessel, and all that happens in Shema. And when that new light, new revelation of the infinite comes into Abba and Ima, it's meant to be transferred into Zayin Nukva. Where is it transferred into Zayin Nukva? Those are the next. That's why we start counting from Ve'ahavta. We don't start from Shema, because we start from the love. The love is already Za. Za is Tiferet. So it's all 6 Sfirot, from Chesed all the way to Yesod. So the first one is Ve'ahavta. The first one is love. The first one is loving kindness. So we did this whole thing in order to explain what is he explaining. Now that we have the infinite light coming down, it goes into Zayin Nukva, and now we'll see that it's so powerful, this light, like we said, that it allows them to trade places. This is what allows them to unify in a way that nothing else unifies. This is a higher type of unification than the unification of Abba and Ima, of a father and mother, because they only unify without trading places. Each one is themselves. Okay, so this is where we're at now. And then, God willing, tomorrow we'll see more about what comes out of this. So I hope this is understood. It's a very, very basic component in Kabbalah. A lot of stuff hinges on it. That you first have to go through Abba and Ima, the higher Jerusalem, then you go to the lower Jerusalem. Right?
First from lower to higher.
That's if it was Itaruta Dil Tata. But it's not an Itaruta Dil Tata here. You're not awakening from below. That's for you maybe. But Hashem says, for me to come into Yerushalayim Shemata, I first have to go through Yerushalayim Shemata. That's because he starts from above, because he's a Itaruta Dileila.